For the Sunday night primetime game this week, we've got a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. New England Patriots going on the road to face the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sure you remember in last year's AFC title game, New England did win that game, advance to the Super Bowl. Now, Baltimore should have won that game if Lee Evans had not dropped that touchdown pass at the end of the game. I mean, I know Baltimore fans are still seeing that in their dreams or their nightmares, and Evans is no longer on the team, no longer in the league, as a matter of fact. Not coincidentally. If he had hung on to that pass, I have a feeling he would still be in the NFL with Lee Evans. But really, an inexcusable drop. It's hard to talk about that game without talking about that drop. But really, coming out of that game, aside from the drop, the big story was the play of Joe Flacco. Heading into the playoffs last season, a lot of people still thought that Flacco might be sort of a liability on this Ravens team, that maybe the team won in spite of him. I mean, he was questioned last year in the media by members of his own team, but he played so well in that AFC Championship game where there's so much pressure, obviously, it being, the AFC Championship game. And he's looked good so far this year. So now you don't hear a lot of those questions about Joe Flacco anymore. In just a few months, the narrative on that has sort of turned around. And now Flacco is seen as a guy who sort of arrived. And even though he's probably not viewed as elite yet in the NFL, I think he's viewed as above average and more of a reason his team wins instead of, his team winning in spite of him. That was certainly the case in Week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Ravens looked great in that game, blew out a Bengals team that made the playoffs last year. Ravens really dominated the action on both sides of the ball. However, they did lose last week to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the offense looked pretty good in that game, looked good enough in the first half. Some concerning signs, though, from the Baltimore defense in that game. And listen, this Baltimore defense has been the strength of this team and one of the best units in the league for years. They were top 5 in the league last year, nearly every major statistical category, as they have been for most of the last decade plus, really ever since Ray Lewis has been on the team. But Ray Lewis is 37 now. Ed Reed is 34. Terrell Suggs, last year's Defensive Player of the Year, not with the team now, still recovering from that Achilles injury. So heading into the season, a lot of people were wondering, is this the year Baltimore's defense takes a step back? Through Week 1, it sure didn't look like that against Cincinnati Bengals. They looked like that same old dominating Baltimore defense. However, last week, when they weren't forcing turnovers, they forced plenty of turnovers in that game, Philadelphia turning it over, I believe, 3 times in the first half alone. But when they weren't forcing turnovers, they weren't stopping the Eagles either. Philadelphia was able to move up and down the field on this Ravens defense. And certainly New England's offense, at least historically, at least as good as the Eagles' offense. So, at least as good as Philadelphia's offense, who moved the ball well on Baltimore last week. So, if the Ravens' defense has taken a step back, and I think if you're looking at this from the Patriots angle, and again, Baltimore is a 1.5-point favorite in this game right now on BETDAQ, 49.5 the total. And that's a high total, and it's because of that. I think it's because a lot of people think maybe this Baltimore defense is not quite what they used to be. Maybe Joe Flacco and this Baltimore offense a little better than they used to be. But if you're looking at this from a New England angle, what you're hoping and what might be the reality is that Baltimore's defense has taken a little bit of step back from last year, and New England's defense, which was terrible last year, next to last in the league, might have taken a little bit of a step forward. New England does have some young players who are getting a lot of time on defense this year, and I mean, they lost last week to the Arizona Cardinals at home, a shocking result, but defense wasn't awful in that game. Now, the Cardinals are pedestrian on offense. I mean, we really don't know anything about this New England defense yet. They faced the Tennessee Titans and the Arizona Cardinals, 2 teams who are expected to have bad offenses coming into the year, 2 teams who are very conservative on offense during those games. So this is only Week 3 of the season. We'll find out a lot more about both of these teams, but I'm sure Patriots fans or people who are thinking about backing the Patriots in this game, part of the logic they might be using is, well, this New England defense looks a little bit better, and that Baltimore defense looks a little bit worse. And the combination of those things might be just enough because obviously these teams were really, really close last year. I mean, a drop pass away from a different team winning this AFC Championship game. But over the last couple of years, it seems to me that when Baltimore and New England have played, Baltimore has always been the more physical team and has sort of looked like the better team. New England's always had the better quarterback, no question about that. But Baltimore 3-1-1 against the number in their last 5 against New England, so they have had some success here recently. However, not many teams in the league better as a road underdog than the New England Patriots. If you get a chance to back this team on the road getting points, usually you jump on that opportunity. 4-0-1 their last 5 games, road underdogs, and that might sound like, well, it's a small sample. That's only 5 games. New England's not an underdog very often, okay? So the last 5 games, that spans over the last couple of years. So usually when this team's a road underdog, they cash their bettors' tickets. This team's a good team to back. But what do you make of that loss last week? I mean, is that just an aberration, an isolated incident? Or is that, warning signs of something bigger that's going on. Aaron Hernandez out, so they're not able to use that 2 tight end set, or at least they're not able to use it with as much effectiveness. They've signed Kellen Winslow, a prince of a person, one of the most popular and beloved guys in the league, right? Kellen Winslow, they signed him. Obviously, they're not worried about character concerns in their locker room, but they'll now put him out there in those 2 tight end sets with Rob Gronkowski. Remains to be seen if he can match Aaron Hernandez's production. Winslow does still have some good football left in him. I mean, he led the Tampa Bay Bucs in receptions last year, but his attitude is so bad that despite that, and despite the fact that the Bucs are devoid of offensive weapons, Coach Greg Schiano ran him off the team, and so far, at least in Tampa, the results have looked pretty positive. It looked like that was a good move by Schiano, but Winslow, will be interesting to see how much action, if he gets any action in this game. We do expect him to play a little bit. Be interesting to see if that New England offense is able to pick it back up. You know, Arizona was not expected to be good on defense heading into this season, but it's a new year. We don't know. We might look back in 8 or 10 weeks and see that New England was held below 20 points by the Arizona Cardinals, and the Arizona Cardinals at that time might look like the San Francisco 49ers did through 10 games last year, and we might say, oh, there's that tough Arizona defense. They showed it early in the year against New England. So we don't want to overreact here. Tough to get bet against the Patriots as road dogs. That's why I do lean towards New England in this game. However, it's too close for me to call. I don't believe I'm going to be backing the Patriots in this game. Would not surprise me at all if Baltimore came out and really set the tone and physically dominated this game. It should be a great one to watch. All kinds of markets on BETDAQ will be up for this game. Again, this is the Sunday night primetime game. So in addition to the handicap, money line, the total, there'll be all kinds of individual player bets, player prop bets, things of that nature. So should be a fun game to watch, should be a fun game to bet on. I sure am looking forward to it.